can't say that.
It's just an insurance, 211 per year.
Okay.
George, correct?
Sorry?
211 per year insurance.
Self-managed.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys, good afternoon. A very, very warm welcome to what is sure to be another very special Harcourts Rata and Co auctioneer number 2 at 7 Poplar Street in Thomastown. My name is Robert Ozzimo. I proudly represent the company of Harcourts Rata and Co. And I'm joined here today by some of my award-winning team in blue. No doubt you'll notice them among you in the crowd here today. They're here for your assistance. Should you require their advice, please feel free to approach either Alex Dukas, Rob Stefanovski, Mary Ali, and of course George and Christina Ioannou, who no doubt you've had the great pleasure of becoming acquainted with throughout the marketing campaign. Guys, let me share with you now the following announcements, which in place to help you bid and buy with absolute confidence here today. The auction will be conducted in accordance with the rules that are available for inspection before the start of the auction. The auction rules prohibit an auctioneer from accepting bids or offers for property after the property's been knocked down to the successful bidder. The vendors have a reserve price as the auctioneer. I'll indicate bidders on request. The law prohibits false bids, prohibits major disruptions by bidders, and prohibits bidders attempting to prevent others from bidding, and provides for fines for such conduct. The rules permit for vendor bids. The words I'll use during the auction to indicate that I'm making a bid on behalf of the vendor are vendor bid, and by law only I, as the auctioneer, can make a vendor bid. The contract of sale has been on display prior to today's auction. We call for a 10% deposit upon the fall of the hammer and the signing of that contract to take place here today, with the balance to be paid at settlement in a flexible 30 to 45 days time, at which time the vendor will provide the lucky buyer with vacant possession of the property. All in all, quite a straightforward contract. Everything is in here. Everything is quite clear. So buyers, is with my highest recommendation what we offer for your consideration and competition here today. Judging from the crowd here today and the interested parties we know that we have a special offering, and that is a great townhome in a great location here in the heart of Thomastown. Opposite Parkland, easy access to a plethora of shopping options, transport options, and of course schooling options, not far away at all from the Western Ring Road, providing simple access into the city. It's this Thomastown central location which has created so much capital growth in recent years. So you can buy with confidence today, knowing that you're buying in an area that is supported by that infrastructure which underpins capital growth of property itself. Luxury throughout, offering 2 large bedrooms, that study area downstairs, a separate lounge, a great appointed townhome for any first home buyer, any investor. If you'd like to get the sold sticker up on the board, right now is your time to do just that, buyers. Where can I see a fair and reasonable starting bid for 2 at 7 Poplar? Who'd like to start us off? I don't mind the call. I'm in your hands. At 380,000, we'll go with you at 380,000. Best of luck here today. 380 the bid. At 380,000, perhaps rounding off to 4. At 380 now. At 380,000, fairly been offered now at 380. At $380,000 the bid for the first call. At 380,000, are we done? At 90, I was hoping for 400 in the rise, ma'am. Can I say 4?
10.
You would play hardball with me, that's fine. At 90 now. At 390,000, welcome, best of luck. At 390 now, got to be 400 in the rise. At 400, got. At $400,000 now. At 400,000 now, it's got to be 410. At 400, the bid there, across the road with Mary at 400. At 410, welcome back at 410. At 410,000. At 410,000, bid back on this side, ma'am. Opportunity with you at 10 now. At 20 now. At 420,000, fairly been offered at 30, can I say? At 420,000. At 420,000, first call at 420, are we done? At 30, welcome sir, best of luck ma'am. At 430,000. At 430,000, the bid's there now. 430. At 50 now, I was going to suggest 50, sir, you read my mind. At 50. At 450,000. At 450,000, 560 now, and welcome back at 60. At 460,000. At 460,000, bids there. At 460, the bid. At 460,000. I'm not taking 5, sir. Make it 10. 470, can I say? 60 I have. At 460,000. 70 will get you in front. At 460, the bid. At 70 now. Welcome at 70. At 470,000. 80 the call, ma'am. At 470,000, the bid's here. At 470 now. At 470,000. First call at 470,000. Are we done? I will take the 5 at 475. Same courtesy at 5 if you like at 475 and 80 now. At 480,000, small bids help the competition come along. Big bids lock the competition out. We're at 480 now. We're at 480,000. 85 will get you ahead at 480,000. The bids there at 480. At 85 now. At 485,000. At 485,000. Michael here to help also at 485 and make it 90 if you like at 485 and the bids there. At 490,000 now. At 490,000. George, are we selling? George? We're selling on the market and selling at 490,000. Bids there. Keys are also there. Keys are in play. We're on the market. We sell here today. Make absolutely no mistake about it. If you've come to buy, you must bid me now or forever hold your peace. Was that a bid? I will, but I don't think it's going to put you in good stead. At 492, we'll go at 92 now. At 492,000, if you've come to buy, you must bid me now. At 95 now, at 495. At 495,000, make it 500 if you like. At 495, I saw that bid first, sir. At 495. At 495,000, fairly been offered now. 495 the bid. At 500,000, welcome and best of luck at 5. At 500,000 now, there's no half-time break here today, buyers. If you came to buy, you must bid me now. I'm not going inside. I'm not seeking further instructions. My instructions have been given. We do sell here today. At 500,000, the bid's there. The keys are there. We're selling once at 500. At 505 now, at 505. Got to be just that much quicker, sir, at 505. At 505,010, welcome back at 10. At 510,000 now. At 510 the bid. At 510,000 bids there. Opportunity here if you like at 510. At 510,000 bids here. Keys are here. We sell here today at 15 now. At 515,000. At 515,000. 20. At 20. Did I hear 10 somewhere? At 20 I've got. At 500. At 520,000 now. At 520 the bid. At 520,000 bid there. 520. At 22. At 522. At 522,000 now. Fairly been offered at 22. At $522,000 the bid for the first call at 522. Are we done? Second call at 25. Welcome. Best of luck at 30 now. At 530,000 the quick retort. One bid not enough here today, ma'am. At 530,000. Second one might be lucky. At 30. At 32, at 532, at 35, at 535, at 535,000, bids back there across the road at 35. What about 40 in the rise? At 535,000, at 535,000, bid there. Opportunity with every other buyer here today at 530,000 now. For the first call at 530, are we done? 535 we are. I was trying to give him a discount, ma'am. At 535, second call at 535, done. At 37 now. 40, at 540 now, at 540,000, at 540 we're back there at 40, at 540,000 fairly been offered now at $540,000 the bid at 41, at 541 now, at 541, at 541 we're back here, bid so strong sir, don't leave me just yet, this is where it counts, at 541,000 the bid's there, it's against you, at 541 the bid, at 541,000 fairly been offered and 2 now, 542 and 3, at 543. At 4.4 now, 5, at 5.45, at 545, at 545,000, how about 50, sir? At 545, at 545,000, fairly been offered bids there, keys are there, 46. At 46, 7, 8 if you like, 50 is better, at 547 now, at $547,000 the bid, at 50 now and welcome at 5, welcome back rather at 550,000, at 51, at 551, at 551,000 the bid's there at 51, at 551 the bid, at $551,000 the bid. We're on the market, we sell here today, 551 the bid, first call at 551,000, done. Twice at 551, done. Finished. Third at 52 now, and 3 at 553, at 553,000. Might take a bigger bid to get the job today. At 553,000, ones aren't working. At 553, at 553,000. What was the response, sir? We still in? At 553,000, still seeking instructions on the phone. At 553 now. At 553,000, fairly been offered now. At 553 the bid. At 553,000 for the first call. At 553, all done. at 55 and welcome back at 6, at 556, at 556, 555 and 6 now, 556, at 556,000 now. How about 60, sir? At 556,000, bids there, keys are there, we're selling at $556,000 the bid. Once at 556, done. Twice. At 60 now, welcome back at 61, at 561, not quite enough yet, sir, at 561. At 561,000, fairly been offered, bids out, back there across the road at 561. Man, we're definitely done over here. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. At 561,000, bids there, we're done over here. Thank you very much for your bidding today at 561. At 561,000, fairly been offered now at 61. Bids it's against you, sir, at 561,000. I need to know at 561. We're all done back there. Thank you very much for your bidding at 561,000. Bids here with Christina at 561 now. First call at 561, done. Second call at 561, done. Finished. Third, final call, 561,000. Are we all done? All finished. All silent out at 561. You're not leaving me just yet, sir. We've only just started to get acquainted. Are you sure? We're definitely done. One more minute. I don't know if I've got that many fillers left in me, sir. At 561. At 561,000. The bid's there. I need to know. Sorry to apply pressure, but do need to know we are selling here today. The keys are there. If you want them, you have to bid me now. At 561,000. You're definitely done. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. Are we done here? At 561? You look unsure, sir. You're absolutely positively sure. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today. We're done there, sir, in the middle at 561. Looks like we're done there at 561,000, ma'am. They tell me they're all out at 561 now. First call at 561. Are we done? Twice at 561. Done and finished. Done there, Rob. Third, final call at $561,000 the bid. All done, all finished, all silent and out. At 561,000, we're selling, 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 sold. Congratulations. Please join me in congratulating our purchasers and our vendors here today. You've just witnessed another successful Harcourts Rata & Co auction. Have a great week.